All right. I see my man is in the background, Esteban Carrillo. How you doing, man? You doing okay today?
Hi, Jamal. Good morning. I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How about you?
I am doing okay. I'm doing okay. For some reason, dragging a little bit of ass, but I'm okay. But otherwise, I'm okay. Esteban Carrillo, he's Ecuadorian journalist, currently writing for The Cradle. Previously with Tell Us Sir English. Esteban, when do your show come on? Give the audience a heads up.
Sure thing. We have our own podcast. It's called The Cradle News Roundup. And we actually changed schedules a bit because we used to be competing with Jamal. Now we are actually at 11 a.m. Eastern. I think
Are
that
you
is.
serious?
Yes. We moved because we have, people watch from the UK, people watch from all over. And also half of our team is still in Lebanon. So
Okay.
it was a better schedule for everyone. So now you can find us
Okay.
Mondays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern on YouTube on our YouTube channel. It's called The Cradle Media.
Okay, you're joking that you did it because you're competing with me. I just want to make sure
No,
you're joking.
I'm joking. I'm joking about that.
Okay, okay. Fair enough. I was like, what? No way. Okay, good. Because again, Cradle does great work. Like I always say,
Thank you very much.
Sarah Bills from DD Geopolitics, you guys do fantastic work. You guys great stories. The stories are on point. When I find stories, I tend to go and check it because the internet is the internet. It's just like a lot of trash.
Exactly.
But you guys often are on point.
Thank you very much.
I would like to talk about David's Quarter. So this took place yesterday. Dramatic, eye-catching. Israel attacking
Insane.
presidential palace.
Insane images.
Yeah. I mean, like, that is breathtaking. Why did that happen from your point of view?
I mean, honestly, the easiest answer is really why wouldn't it happen, right? Like Israel smells blood in the water. At the same time, Netanyahu was giving his testimony for his corruption trial when this happens. Very coincidental, not at all raising any suspicions. Why does it happen in reality? Israel, I guess, is kind of sending a message to the U.S., right, in telling them, you know what, we don't really want this government in Syria to have any stability, and also we are an expansionist colony, we are an apartheid colony that is just, looking to build what is known as Greater Israel. We already took out Syria. It's open for us to launch attacks on Iran as we see fit. But now, why don't we extend our area of not just of control, but also of influence, right? And you make reference to David's Corridor. And at The Cradle, we had an article a few months ago that dove kind of deep into this. And this is a land corridor that extends from the occupied Golan Heights, which Israel now is in de facto control of, honestly have been since 1967. But now we know essentially that this Al-Qaeda government in Syria is not going to do much to take it back. And because in December, when Israel bombs the entirety of Syria's military assets, and they take control of about 500 square kilometers of the south of Syria, including Mount Hermon, right? And now what's happening this time is essentially them saying, we're going to take a bit more, we're going to continue to extend our area of control because so we can, start developing this corridor that it's more of an influence corridor so much than an actual land, like for transport or something like that. They want to connect from the Golan Heights to Suwaida, where these clashes are happening, to Al Tanef base, in the tri-border area between Iraq, Jordan, and Syria, which is a U.S. occupation base, and then towards the northeast, which is controlled by U.S. proxies in the Syrian Democratic Forces and the Autonomous Administration of Northeast Syria, the Kurds, right? So why is this? They want to reach into Iraq, right? I think this is kind of like the end goal here. Is like, let's have this corridor that allows us to start to have an entryway that reaches all the way to Iraq, at the same time expanding, right, already our control of this region. And so we can, at some point, be able to confront the Shia militias in Iraq, who have been very dormant over the past several months, but who are there, right? The Hashd al-Shabi, also known as the Popular Mobilization Forces. I think this is all connected at the same, it's many things at once. It's also, in many ways, it's theater. Because, look at the images you just put. They are so brutal in their attack, and yet
Mm.
the Syrian government claims like 5 dead or something like that in
Yeah.
all of these attacks. It's a very low figure of injuries and death that they claim. There's reports that Turkey warned Giuliani, the self-proclaimed president of Syria, beforehand, like, hey, you better bolt, you better exit the presidential palace because these maniacs are coming in and they're going to bomb you. So what was the response from Syria, right? Crickets. Like, he gives a statement. He says, oh,
That's
yeah,
what I was
Israel
saying. He
is...
gave a strongly worded speech.
I mean, as strongly worded as his handlers allow, right? Like his Mossad handlers, his CIA handlers, Turkish intelligence. I guess in a way takes the U.S. by surprise, I would say, because in this statement I hang on Marco Rubio's statement, right? You heard when after the attack he says this was a misunderstanding between neighbors. Like, my God, what a misunderstanding, right? Like the attack, the magnitude of the attack, and in the middle of the day, in the middle of a highly populated area, which is part of the course for the Israeli occupation at this point. So
That's a hell of a misunderstanding, man.
exactly.
That is a hell of a misunderstanding.
Like, I don't want to be Marco Rubio's neighbor, right? Like, this is a misunderstanding. My God, man, I don't know what.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of I think I covered many topics in my answer, because I don't think there's one clear-cut answer. I think it's work at many levels. Let's keep Syria destabilized. Let's interrupt Bibi's corruption trial. Let's send the US a message. Let's send Turkey a message. Let's send everyone essentially a message here, right? And also at the same time, let's pretend that we are here to protect the Druze, because yesterday the Jerusalem Post has this headline that was just revolting, that says something like the attacks in Syria show how we need to step up to prevent a genocide or something like that. Like they claim that the attacks in Syria prevents a genocide. And it's like, man, what are you doing in Gaza? Like, where do you even come from with these claims? But they do, because they have no shame. They have no interest in the truth. So yeah, I think it's a combination of many of these things.
Do you think Al Jilani is in on it? Because one or two things is true.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right. They're like, we're protecting the Druze. That's what we're doing. We're bombing all of these locations. We're taking over southern Syria, because they are literally taking more and more of southern Syria. Mm-hmm. Netanyahu came out, gave a speech where he, in the speech, is for all intents and purposes saying, we are protecting the Druze and we don't want any military to go below Damascus. And it's like, whoa, Damascus,
wow.
What do you mean? That's a big chunk of Syria that you've just stolen there, buddy.
Exactly.
And that's what they've effectively done. And they're doing it, as you point out, under the guise of we're protecting the Druze. So we're taking half of Syria, we're balkanizing Syria. That's astonishing.
It's wild. It's wild, that you have well, first of all, a wanted war criminal, but second of all, the head of a foreign government coming in and saying, you better not have military south of your capital. Yep. I thought this was the new reformed, pluralistic, diverse, democratic, neoliberal Syria, right? Like this is what the story they've been trying to sell. And this is what I mean that when I feel like there was a message sent to the US, because all of a sudden it looked like the US didn't really know how to control the narrative. You know what Thomas Barak, the US Special Envoy, had been saying for several weeks now, which is he talked about federalism in Syria. He talked about a unified Syria. He talked about Lebanon. Remember that? He was like, if Lebanon doesn't move quickly disarming Hezbollah, they're just going to become part of Syria again. So he was trying kind of like to draw an updated version of the Sykes-Picot lines, right? Of redrawing West Asia. In Syria, and Israel comes in, right, with their own plan. And in this case, Netanyahu comes with his own plan, because really, truly, I think the most important thing out of all of this is the fact that the attacks happened during the testimony of the corruption trial of Netanyahu, right? It's like Netanyahu keeps being this actor that says, I am not going to be told how to do anything. I am in control of everything, right? Of everything across the board. I am in control, and I'm going to show everyone how in control I am. As far as Giuliani being in on it, I think so. This is not an independent actor, Giuliani.
No,
he's not there for his achievements, right? Like he was he was in control of Idlib for several years, right? The northwest of Syria. What did he achieve there? What progress? Did he lift anyone out of poverty? He was getting all of the UN aid, right? All of the UN aid that was entering Syria while, the dictatorship of Bashar al-Assad was in power. all of the UN aid was entering through Idlib. How did it help the people of Idlib? It did not at all, because this Al-Qaeda government was, reselling it in the black market and then laundering their gains in Turkey, buying property. And now he has control of all of Syria. So again, this is not an independent actor. This is someone who follows orders. And now I don't know, because it sounds like he's getting conflicting orders, right? Like at the same time being like, hey, rebuild Syria, but also continue, if you're going to continue ethnically cleansing minorities, we look the other way. And then at the same time, Israel comes in and bombs the hell out of you. And,
that's what I'm asking. That's exactly what I'm asking my question. Because it's very strange. Obviously, he's not his own actor. I have to be honest with you. When he took over, I was like, there's no way they're going to allow a head chopper to run a caliphate. Like, meaning, it's one thing if you have Idlib. It's another thing if you're running a state. That is mind-blowing. There's no way they're going to allow that. And my thought was that this was purely going to be Israel's expansion period, where they were going to use the destabilization of Syria as a justification for it. Okay, well, I was kind of wrong. The U.S. seems to be, we're going to get rid of sanctions. This is our guy. He's going to allow the ethnic cleansing of all of these groups. So we're going to allow him to murder Alawites. We're going to allow him to murder Druze. We're going to allow him to do this. And Israel is like, hey, what do you say about Druze?
Like, they love that excuse, right? The Druze.
Yeah, it's very strange. And I guess my thing is, if at no point did he ever fire a bullet at Israel. What's wild about it, some of those guys would be sitting there screaming, we're going after the Druze because they're working with the Zionists. And it's like, dude, are you serious right now? Like, your guy is literally trying to normalize relations with Israel. What are you talking about?
Very important, very important. Like, this attack comes like days after he personally, Shara or Julani, however you prefer to call him, he meets with Israeli officials in Azerbaijan, and previously met with Israeli officials, including the national security advisor in UAE, in Abu Dhabi.
Yep.
You know, he's completely on board to normalize. He's completely told Israel already, we have a common enemy, right? Like he's the one pitching, creating essentially the axis of Zionism, or, the axis of apartheid, and saying, we'll go after Hezbollah, we'll help you go after the Iraqi militias, anyone, any Iranian influence, they are our enemies as well. Then Israel comes and bombs the hell out of your capital. And what is your response, right? Like, what is it that he said? We're not a people who are afraid of war or something of that. Like, he gave a speech that didn't lead anywhere, because at the same time, what capability does he have to start attacking anyone, really? No, much less Israel, which does have the most advanced army military prowess in the region. Israel destroyed all of Syria's, their air force, their navy, their air defenses. Any overland military capabilities that Syria had at the end of the Bashar period, Israel, pummeled, destroyed, turned into dust. So now, what does the ISIS and Al-Qaeda government in Syria have? Is the same weapons that they had when they were in Idlib, and when they made their flash advance to Damascus, in which they face absolutely no resistance. So how are they going to launch attacks? Right? Like, they will launch attack against the Lebanese army already. The Lebanese army fire back. The Lebanese army, unfortunately, an actor that is almost as underarmed as these militias. And now, against the Druze, it was against the Alawites in March. They killed at the very least 1,500. And the Kurds in the northeast are looking at all of these, right? And at the same time, you have the PKK disarming and saying that their war against Turkey is ending. And the Kurds are probably at this point wondering, like, did we, pick the right horse in this race? Well, it's too late at this point to wonder, because it seems that this, caliphate, as you call it, is correct. This is an Islamic caliphate that has been imposed in Syria. It's going to do as they do, right? And Israel is going to come in and have the freedom to bomb whenever they want, because they know there's never going to be any repercussion.
Sake of argument, Hezbollah also doesn't have air defense. They don't have airplanes, and they were able to fight Israel to a standstill. If they wanted to, Israel is now flush against Syria. They have an entry point into Israel if they ever actually wanted to attack, but they never do. They never try. They never fired a bullet in anger. Like, I guess my thing is, if Hezbollah can fight Israel to a standstill, why can't they also go after Israel? And I don't know the answer for this. That's why I'm asking the question.
You mean HTS, or, well, the Syrian army?
HTS.
I think it's like it's more of an ideological thing, right? Or more like
And one more thing, is there a difference between HTS and the Syrian army at this point?
of the former Syrian army. I would imagine that. I mean, I don't want to make assumptions either, but the former Syrian army, as corrupt as it was, as evidenced by the fact that there was absolutely no resistance when HTS marched down south, they still stood for the Syrian Republic, right? Like they fought ISIS alongside Hezbollah and Iran. They recently had been doing, trying to take on, well, before the fall of Damascus and all of that, they were trying, they were working with the Russians, trying to take back territory and etc., keep controlling the south, always facing resistance, always facing, targeted assassinations, etc. Now, the HTS, first of all, you're not talking about an actor that is, Syrian per se. It has Syrian elements. Then you're talking about a whole bunch of Central Asian terrorists. You're talking, about exactly the Uyghurs, the Chechens, the Tajikistanis, etc. People from Europe, people from the U.S. Right? You gotta remember, in the Northeast, there's still tens of thousands of ISIS members and their families who are in these Kurdish-controlled camps that allies of the Al Qaeda government in Syria, the Syrian National Army, and all of that, backed by Turkey, want control of. Right? And I highly doubt they want control of these prison camps to keep these people in prison, right? It's more likely than not to liberate them as their brothers in arms. So I think, as far as capability, they probably, Hezbollah is definitely better armed, better trained, a completely different ideological approach and, belief system that has already defeated Israel in wars and has no fear. If Hezbollah is not active at this point, it's not because they fear Israel. It's because the situation internally in Lebanon demands that they stay at a standstill. For the time being, at least, it's nobody wants to drag Lebanon into even a deeper hole than it already is, and that includes, of course, Hezbollah. So, and on the other side, like I said, the Syrians that call themselves now, or these actors that call themselves now the Syrian army, they're there. They were there initially to build this caliphate. They were there initially to impose, Sharia law and create the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, etc. So, like I said, a completely ideological difference, completely military differences, and also, when is the last time we have seen ISIS or Al Qaeda turn against Israel? Right? When has Israel really come under attack by these actors? It's always going to be first the Shias, then the Christians and any other minorities, and maybe at the very end of their list, it will come Israel.
So if you're reading Western media...
I can't hear you, Jamal.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. How about now? Can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you. I don't know what happened. Hello?
Can the audience hear me? Guys, can you hear me?
Let me disconnect and come in again. Something happened.
Okay. Because I can hear you just fine. Okay. He will be right back. He's giving a great breakdown. I can hear you, Jamal. Thank you very much. I appreciate you for giving me a heads up, because if it's just two people, one person I can't hear you, the other person I can't hear you, who knows? It's like kind of speed of light, right? If you're sitting on a train, can't tell that you're moving. Is it me that's moving, or is it the external environment? Okay, I want him to come back because we have 10 minutes and I really want, excellent. Esteban, let me bring in. Esteban, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you now. I think it's my browser.
Oh, you're fine. Question before I let you go. If you're reading Western media is reporting this in a very particular way. Mm-hmm. A, they don't bring it to the fact that they're ethnic cleansing. B, they don't bring it to the fact that these goons, these Jelani's dogs, have went through and murdered all of these people at the hospital. I don't know if you've seen that video. It is disgusting. You go from room to room as you're walking through a bloodstained hallway, almost like you're in a horror movie. And as you walk into a room, you have bodies that are just piled up, bodies that are in bags. And apparently Jelani's, I call them dogs, went through and just shot indiscriminately, killing all of the people that were there. Effectively, they're doing the ethnic cleansing. When Netanyahu made that speech, Netanyahu says the military from Syria needs to go back go back north, in which case they went back north. But then you have other groups that are like, we're not part of the military, so we're going to continue what we've been doing. The way the Western media is reporting it is that there were a pickpocket, there were people who were treated poorly, the Druze got uppity and I'm using these words.
Yeah.
And there were conflicts, and the conflicts exploded, in which case you get, I guess, all of these other groups that are now trying to kill the Druze, and the Druze building up their own military to fight back. The Israelis get involved in order to protect the Druze. Druze come from Israel streaming into the area in order to build, I guess, militias in order to fight back. That's the way Western media is reporting it. They're reporting it as it's the Bedouins who are doing this, and the Bedouins have up to 100,000 to 500,000 that they are calling almost like a general mobilization in order to ethnically cleanse the Druze. Is it really the Bedouins in the way that they're saying it? Are the Bedouins under the thumb of Jelani? I'm trying to understand the interplay between Western media and the way that they're reporting it versus the reality of it.
Well, Western media is really, like they kind of do not know what to say at this point. They're really waiting for the memos from the State Department to come clarifying things, right? Because again, let me just quickly remind people, how was it covered when HTS and all of these goons were killing Alawites left and right in March? They were being called Assad remnants. No, they were calling Assadis. They were called, these families, these civilians that were being executed, shot like dogs on the street. This is how it was framed, right? Like clashes between remnants of the old regime and the new free Syria, whatever. So now you kind of have a repeat of this. Yes, it was actually this whole thing. It started with the Bedouins who are aligned with HTS and Julani and all of them, that, as you said, they are not officially part of this government, but at the same time, I wonder, how official can anyone be part of this government, right? Because it's a self-proclaimed government. It's, an Al-Qaeda administration that dissolved the constitution, dissolved everything a few months ago. And yes, Shara has, in one way or another, kind of been, first of all, offering the heaven and earth to Israel, but also kind of trying to get everyone on board with him, without really controlling his dogs, right? So not really offering a lot of confidence or guarantees. But so the Bedouins start this, and of course the Druze, right? They defend their land and they're doing what they're doing. They have announced, I think, 2 or 3 ceasefires this week already, and all of them have been broken. Even today, there's still clashes. The UN, Volker Turk, one of a UN official, he came out and said, we have actual, credible reports of executions, of summary executions, of mass killings. You were talking about 600 people killed in between, civilians and fighters so far in these clashes. So the real question here internally in Syria is, how much control does Shara have of anything in Syria, right? Because even last night, there were reports that there was an attempted assassination. I mean, it's like all over the place what is happening. And it's exactly what we expected, right? Back in December, when him and his band of thugs march on Damascus and take control. And the entirety of Western media, the Western media apparatus, hails this moment, the victory of the Arab Spring and a free Syria and the moderate rebels and the, jihadis who love diversity and all of these absurd statements that they make. Now it's kind of, all of these lies are being smashed against reality. And the West and the Western media are having real trouble, merging the two, merging their past lies with whatever's going to be their new lies, because at the same time, you have Israel coming in. And Israel really, honestly, one of a handful of nations in the world that comes out and says, this is an Al-Qaeda government, we're going to defeat, Iranian, etc. And you're like, okay, you're weaponizing the truth for your own purposes, but it's kind of hilarious that you have, the perpetrator of the modern day Holocaust come in and all of a sudden start saying the truth, and then Western media kind of trying to catch up and being like, you can tell that their brain cells are kind of going against each other, because all of a sudden, how do you justify all of this? How do you even begin to explain it? Because from the beginning, Syria has been a very complicated conflict and intervention, dirty war, to really outline and explain to people who don't pay attention to this very closely, and that now it's just becoming even more so. Right, so to the point that even their lies start to contradict each other.
Yeah, not to mention Israel helped get this government in office.
Exactly.
I mean, they were helping ISIS. They were giving support. I mean, they were even doing maneuvers, working with Turkey at the time where the Syrian government fell. And of course, Erdogan was screaming, "Oh my God, Netanyahu's Hitler," while working with a Hitler in order to take down the Syrian government.
Exactly.
Where do you think this goes? I mean, if you are, for one, this seems to be a dismemberment of Syria. like in real terms. I mean, how can the government go and murder a bunch of basically ethnically cleanse a group, and that group still believe that it's part of that government? Same thing with the Alawites. Is there really an Alawite that thinks it's part of Syria at the point where the Syrian government was effectively legitimizing the murder of those Alawites? And at the point where Israel is effectively told the military, you can't go to the south. Okay, that's pretty outrageous. The military is the beating heart of a nation. If the military can't go in a particular part of the nation, then it's not really part of that nation anymore.
Exactly.
Like, how do you view this? I mean, is this a dismemberment? And one last question to piggyback on that. Do the Druze have enough force to push back, to protect themselves against what seems to be some kind of general mobilization of Bedouins?
Well, let me answer the second question first. Today, Israel announced that they have given permission to the Syrian army to enter Suwaida for 48 hours. A foreign government gives the national army of another country permission. And then, Shara and his gang of maniacs, they reply saying, okay, thank you, Israel. We will leave before 48 hours. Don't worry about it. Please don't bomb us in the meantime. So kind of, the shape of things to come right there. What power do the Druze have to defend themselves? Well, as long as Israel wants to use them as a smokescreen to, pretend to be the defenders of humanity and human rights, they're going to have protection until that ends, and until the news cycle moves to something else. Then the Druze are going to be on their own, and I'm sure that they're armed, etc. Because they started themselves the clashes against the Bedouin tribes. But it's not going to be if Israel abandons them, I don't think they're going to be able to mount as much of a defense. What was your first question, Jamal? I'm sorry.
So the first question was effectively, is this the dismemberment of Syria? And this will be the last question. Are we going to look at a Druze area, a Kurdish area? They get their Kurdistan for all intents and purposes. Israel takes over parts of the south. Al-Shara continues to maintain, I guess, Damascus and maybe a small rump state. Meaning, is that what we're looking at going to this with Syria?
I think this is inevitable, really, because, despite the attempts, the Gulf and Turkish and US-backed attempts to have everyone kind of rally behind Shara, this was what Thomas Barak was doing. This is what the Gulf has been doing, by paying Syria's arrears to the World Bank and etc. Obviously not because they want development of Syria, mostly because all of a sudden you have an actor in control of this giant country. Syria is a massive country. That can incur as much debt as it wants with the IMF, with the World Bank. And like they did in Idlib, all of this money is certainly not going to reach the population of Syria. And so the Gulf and everyone else, all of their backers were kind of chomping at the bit of this, but they need to put a bit of like a veneer of stability, right, on the country. Israel, of course, doesn't want that. They want Syria to become the next Libya, essentially, and it's kind of where it's going, right? As you were saying, is this going to be balkanized, fragmented? Yes, I think so, and I think the Syrian war is far, far from over. Sadly, at this point, when we talk about Syria, we're not really talking about a nation anymore. We're talking about a piece of land in which there's a whole lot of people, millions of people, who, when they look at each other, they no longer see another citizen of their country, right? They no longer see another Syrian. They see an Alawite, they see a Sunni, they see a Kurd, they see a Druze, they see a Shia, they see a Christian. It's become this, right? It's becoming essentially, like you said, a fragmented state in which nobody has any ties to anyone else, right? And if anything, and then at the control of the entire government, you have these maniacs who believe deep in their heart that it is their right and their purpose and their role in this earth to go and kill everyone else who doesn't think like them, who doesn't pray like them, right? So this is essentially what the new liberated, free and democratic Syria is a mirage hiding ethnic cleansing and hiding, the manipulation of the Western governments to essentially destabilize this country, turn it into a new Libya, and open the doors for Israel to attack Iran or Iraqi militias or Lebanon as they see fit.
And get its greater Israel.
Indeed.
That's effectively what it is, right? They're trying to get their greater Israel.
Indeed.
Esteban, man, great breakdown. Honest to God, great breakdown. Esteban Carrillo, he is a Beirut-based Ecuadorian journalist, currently writing for The Cradle, previously with Sir English. You be safe. Have a fantastic evening, man. Thank you for this.
Bye-bye, Jamal. Thank you.